Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Energy Network webinar. I probably say this every single time, but I love seeing some of the same people who have joined from the very first one, which was, I think, about 2 years or so ago. So you guys have got an incredible streak going, so thank you for joining again. And to all the new people, thank you as well. Hope you enjoy it and hope we see you on many more to come. But why do we do these quarterly webinars? Well, we realize and we know how difficult it is to stay on top of your day-to-day job, as well as just trying to stay on top of everything within the industry, whether that's new technologies or security threats. It's all a lot. So hopefully from today you can gain some information about how to stay on top of things and where the industry is headed, and just learn something. If you're anything like me and can't take notes while listening at the same time, well then don't stress. We'll be sending out a copy at the end of this webinar. And if you know someone who might enjoy it or who just couldn't attend for whatever reason, please feel free to forward it. So the agenda for today. Firstly, we're going to be speaking about the value of security. What are your first thoughts when you think of security? Do you just think of some cameras maybe, or maybe a gate? Well, in today's webinar, we're going to touch on some topics which delve a bit deeper into other aspects of security, some more exciting stuff, the more fun stuff, not just boring cameras and the odd gate here or there. We'll be speaking about why security is crucial in the planning of a site. When you're planning a site or potentially buying a site, do you think of security as almost a bolt-on at the end, or do you try integrate it with your planning? I know from our experience that customers who tend to integrate it into the planning phase right from the beginning, they've reaped the rewards later down the line and haven't had those grey hairs or headaches further down the line. What are the benefits of investing before something happens? Like I alluded to, security can be seen as somewhat of an afterthought sometimes. But what if something were to get stolen or you were to get broken into? You'd incur reputational damage, which is very hard to quantify. Your insurance premiums might go up. You'd have to replace the kit. There'd be downtime. You might incur a fine from the national grid. All these things are hit your bottom line. I know, for example, that companies that have faced security breaches just wish they would have added that extra capital outlay in the beginning, which significantly dwarfs the costs that they've incurred later down the line. We've been doing this since 1994, so as you can imagine, we've heard all sorts of different stories, from the weird, the crazy, and the wonderful to the common ones. We're going to talk about some common cases that have happened to customers that we've experienced. The one common thread that runs throughout everyone is they always said afterwards, they always said, "Oh, we didn't think that would happen to us," or "We thought that would never happen to a company like ours," and now they're having to deal with it and the headaches that have come from that. Who are the people that usually notice that there's a weakness in security? It's often not the board execs. They don't often see that there's a weak point on this perimeter or there's no coverage on that camera. It's often the people on the ground level that understand this. How do they and how do you get your case presented internally and to raise budgets or get the signatures? It can be so difficult to do that. Also, it can be costly and time consuming. Sometimes it can take years to get the budget approved for it, but then your site's incurring this weakness for years at a time. We'll give you some strategies and ideas of how to present this internally. Maybe it's some of the language you need to use or some of the cases that you can present. I know Mick will go into this in a little bit more detail, but if you ever do need, we're happy to help you with strategies to build and present it internally. So I'm going to let Mick crack on with this now. I know he's excited and raring to go. So over to you, Mick.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dylan. So yeah, let's get straight on ahead. As we've said, and Dylan alluded to, the value of security is more than the piece of equipment that are there, more than just the cameras and the systems that are put into place. certainly everyone thinks of the value of or the cost of that site security. Often that value of the system isn't really evaluated against any risks. It might be just a case of the insurance say that we need to put in this level of protection, and therefore we'll put the minimum in to cover that insurance. It's not done against some actual risks, of which, as Dylan's alluded to, we'll be talking about. There'll be the threats, the vulnerabilities, and those types of things that will come up that actually would cost you more than the insurance savings that you may have. So absolutely. And we talked a little bit about those types of risks last time, didn't we? So we talked about threats, vulnerabilities, and creating that risk assessment. As I said, not all stakeholders will understand all of the benefits of site security, about how it's secured, but and also not really think about how we can be more efficient, so we can be cost saving as well as not paying as much out as well. So yeah, and all those things hopefully will allow for a better business case, which is kind of why we're talking about this today, is to help you guys if you need a bit of help with how you might structure a business case for security. We said it's more than just the cameras. What else can it do? It can be a deterrent for criminality, and it can act as evidence for criminality. Those are often the top two that people think about. But there's also lots of other things that the equipment can do as well. It can control and audit site access, so via access control or other such methods. So we can automate things like that. So you're not having guards having to do visitor management processes of allowing people in and out. You don't necessarily have to keep logbooks that you then have to maintain and have to keep for certain lengths of time. Everything is automatic and audited, so we can be more efficient. Provide remote visibility. Sorry. So again, for the site safety as well as site security, so we can provide that remote visibility for lone working. We can detect and protect from insider threats, and we're looking at that and talking about that because I had a really good example from a particular customer maybe only 2 weeks ago, and not a lot of people think about the insider threat until it happens. And also, as we've talked about before, these types of things can be part of your business continuity and disaster recovery. Hopefully more in that things not happening in the first place scenario, but can also help if things do happen. And we did talk about some of those types of things and how all that can be linked in the different services into Bedrock Capture and things like that. We've talked about that before, haven't we? So why is it crucial at the planning stage? It really ensures that a system's fit for purpose. As we said, we talked about some of the different reasons why these things are put into place, but can it be built to certain standards that would actually reduce your insurance costs, including any kind of premiums and those types of things that can come along with it? Can be designed to allow lone working? Can it even be designed to facilitate a completely unmanned site? So those are the types of things we can look at in terms of the cost of the system, not only against certain types of things like insurances, but also against efficiencies, like we said. Also allows for a clear budget to be set. If we understand what the system is designed to do, what risks does it have to mitigate against, then we can help create a clear budget for that. And if we can have that clear budget, we can have that upfront to stakeholders. So that's really is a massive help that you guys can kind of have a look at and how you would look at budgeting for something like this. It is applicable to new sites, obviously, as Dylan alluded. The sooner you can be looking at how electronic security can help work for you, then the better it is. But we appreciate also that some people are actually purchasing sites off somebody else, and therefore maybe some of the systems would need to have either be renewed, just simply refreshed because they're old, or it could be that you're wanting to kind of take them and integrate them into an existing system. As we talked about before, some systems, some cameras or some kind of systems are able to integrate into maybe a system you've got already. So again, saving you money. You haven't got somebody telling you need to replace everything, potentially. And again, existing sites, if you've got a site and you're thinking, oh, actually, I'm not quite sure that my security is robust enough, then being able to assess that, come out with what budget might be, and be able to look at what mitigations could be put in place can be done just as easily on an existing site as well. So why would you invest before an incident takes place? Sounds a bit silly now, doesn't it, to say that? And it also, you know, most people have already had an incident will go, yeah, it is. Why would it be such a hard thing to think about? Who said a lot of that is just that cost, isn't it? Like we said, of putting it in the first place. So safeguarding assets, it's the most obvious, isn't it? But also it enhances that productivity by minimizing those disruptions. We are aware of clients who use these things not just for security. Some of that, it might be a very good quality camera aimed at a piece of equipment that allows them to see things like dials and gauges and screens and things like that. So that certain assets can be seen and monitored before anything bad happens, alongside obviously your SCADA data that you would get already. Help prevent those incidents that happen in terms of security, whether that's just getting fences torn down or people coming into the premises and doing worse things. We'll talk about some real life scenarios that we've got shortly. Reducing those premiums over time, which again, if you've got a reduced premium over 5, 6, 10 years, then you would expect that saving would be outweighed by the initial cost of a robust solution in the first place. We can also have intelligence systems as well added onto that, which can alert operators before damage happens in whatever format. And again, that can be in lots of ways, whether that's taken from SCADA systems, gas monitoring systems, your burglar alarm systems, fire, whatever it is, water sensors as well, and fire as well, heating, loads of things. So we can more intelligent go, actually, something odd is happening here, whether the room's getting too hot or whatever it would be, and be able to take action before it damages either IT equipment or your OT equipment as well. So from a health and safety perspective, invest in that site security. It can show commitment to staff well-being, and it can hopefully build trust in the fact that, you know, we take people's safety seriously. We want to make sure we're monitoring things. We want to make sure that we, you know, if there's a problem with the system or before somebody goes into a potentially unsafe area, we've got visibility and can tell whether there's, you know, is something on fire? Is there steam coming out of a pipe? Is there something that could be dangerous to a human to be in there? And so being able to have this type of equipment can do that. Secure a site. It contributes to a safer working environment, doesn't it? You know, reducing those incidents. Maybe somebody's broken in and damaged a piece of equipment that nobody knows about, doesn't really look important. And then one day a pipe explodes because somebody had done a bit of damage to it. It's understanding that type of thing. And looking at costs such as compensation claims, litigation, and all those things. Bottom line of both these things, protecting reputation. You know, that's a cost that's very difficult to kind of have a look at and go, oh, what's our reputation worth to us? You know, to most people, it's probably worth everything. And therefore putting it in a monetary term would be quite difficult, wouldn't it? So yeah, something big to think about. So talk you through a couple of real life scenarios. These are not made up. These are real ones from customers. Some that they've talked about and we're looking to help them with. Some that happened and we've already helped them out. And in the case of this one, this is a warehouse in the tobacco industry. Slightly different industry to you guys, but they're still heavily regulated. So that's why I thought it was an appropriate one to share with you. They had a number of break-ins there, which, as you might imagine, could be quite costly. They put some mitigations in place, including extra motion sensors, so they would get broken into. And then they'll go, okay, they broke in by cutting through the metal paneling at the top of the warehouse. So we'll put in some extra motion sensors to catch that. Time after, took all the brickwork out the bottom and came in that way. So this starts sounding like an insider, doesn't it? Somebody must have known that happened. So again, how risky an insider, but our own staff to our business. So we went in, put some equipment in, including things doing analytics and things like that. Semi-rural, a bit like you guys. Sometimes, you know, a lot of your sites are in the middle of nowhere. This is semi-rural as well. So we have to make sure we're not having the thing set off and going off every 2 minutes due to rabbits and things like that, which was a big thing. But investing in that security meant that their incidents have gone down to zero, literally zero in a decade since we put that system in. Insurance has been vastly reduced. Their excess was £20,000 a claim, which meant if he got broken into and a pallet of tobacco was taken, there was no point in getting that replaced and on insurance. He would have to fork that out himself. Just wasn't worth paying on the insurance. But break-ins reduced to 0. They've got monitoring on their system, so if there is an alert, this is the good enough system that adheres to good enough standards that it actually alerts a monitoring station. And using the audio and things like that we've talked about in the past, they can now tell them to leave the site if anyone does jump the fence. But yeah, that initial investment, actually, yeah, it was 2016 that initial investment was made, and since then, no break-ins. So yeah, this one is an electrical substation where electrical cable was cut through. I'm sure a lot of people have come across those types of things or heard stories about them. This is one from one of our customers. So that electrical cable was probably around about £6,000, so about £2,000 in cable, plus the time, the money for the people to replace that cable and put a new cable in. But then it was £1 million lost in other areas, including their premiums rising, fines, which included coming from National Grid, because if you have a contract with them to deliver them power, and if you can't deliver it, then there's some things that come along with that. And obviously that pure lost revenue, it's quite a lot of money that comes from not being able to deliver power that you're just losing. And potential reputational damage, if they then want to go for a license to deliver a power elsewhere, what does that look like if it's really obvious that you've had some incidents, either physical like this or ones we'll talk about not in this particular webinar around things like cyber as well. Reputational damage. How do you get that back, and what does that look like when you're trying to get another award for another power provider provision, should I say? That's what I'm going to look at is vandalism at some unmanned sites, and this was just pure vandalism. These particular people were looking to provide better security and put some new secure doors on various unmanned remote sites they've got, and one of those was just ripped out of the frame. Just an act of vandalism. Just a load of people probably turned up, put a pickup truck onto that door handle and just ripped the door off. Didn't do any other damage. Didn't actually physically harm any of the equipment inside, which was good. But that occurred, and the damage wasn't found until their weekly site checks, because there's no other monitoring or anything currently in place. So yeah, about £5,000 for a door. Time to get that fixed. This time round, nothing bad happened, but yeah, there could have been some things happened. And again, those unmanned sites, that idea of having insider threats who could probably just get keys cut and turn up to these sites and simply unlock doors anyway. Now, how is that physically being protected? That's the first thing, and that's what this webinar is about. But also, is there any other equipment in there? SCADA systems, IT systems, OT systems, where somebody could basically get out a laptop, get out a small router, go plug it in and walk away again, and nobody would know that had ever happened. So yeah, there's lots and lots of others. I'm sure you guys may have heard some as well. There's certainly a lot that we've heard over in the past. Yeah, we have one for another customer where solar panels got delivered to site, got dropped off, and then that night somebody just turns up in a white van and puts them all in the back of a couple of white vans and run off with every panel and things like that. Again, that shows that people are monitoring these sites that are being built to know when to turn up. So let's have a look at how you might present your case. We've talked about it in the last webinar, and hopefully you guys have got some good information from that webinar on creating your own security risk assessment, or if you do need some help, again, we're here. That allows you to have those risks and be able to present them to your stakeholders. Are they happy to accept those risks? Because that's what risk is about, isn't it? It's about mitigating, accepting it, whatever, there's only really a few things you can do with those risks. Sweeping them under the carpet should be one of them. But are they happy to accept those risks? And therefore, if there's anything that happens in terms of potential costs of replacing any equipment that gets damaged or stolen, are they happy with any costs that get lost from incurred downtime? And are they happy whatever those implications are, whether they are cost, whether they are reputational? So yeah, again, present the efficiencies, because it starts to think more than just about money. Yes, in theory, it might be about money because therefore certain things cost less, but things might be more efficient in terms of time as well. So can they be more effective over time? because we can automate certain things, whether that's site access, whether that's, as we said, logging people in and out of the site, whatever it is, security, not having the guards, all that good stuff. Be able to react quicker to people coming onto site who shouldn't be there. And it also means that efficiency means that costs could be saved over time. Most of these, as we say, you're going to pay up front for it, or you're going to pay an amount of money for a system to be put in. It's about thinking about that longer game, isn't it? And being more effective. And as we said, presenting that budget. So if we understand the site, we understand the risks, and therefore we understand what the mitigations need to be, then we have worked with quite a few people now on creating like a budget calculator for people. And we're happy to sit down with people, talk about the kind of level of risk that they're prepared to accept, and therefore the types of mitigations we might put in place. And that would allow you to put into some kind of budgetary measure that you can put into place in terms of the capex of owning the equipment, and also that opex of just operating it, maybe getting support and getting that kind of maintenance on it as well with people. So yeah, with that being said, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Mick, we actually have a couple.
Oh, cool.
The first one's regarding the tobacco company.
Oh, yeah.
So the question was, has the tobacco company had to implement any new security measures, or are the existing ones still adequate since we installed it in 2016?
Oh, right. Okay. I mean, they did move buildings. So that gave us the ability to change for newer styles of cameras. They're still the same type of the same manufacturer, but of course, when was that now? So that'll be in 2020. So we were able to take advantage of better analytics. So that was good. I mean, we could still do very good analytics in 2016 in terms of being able to understand the difference between a human and a fox or a rabbit and things like that, which we had to do. But we were able to implement slightly better analytics to further kind of key that in. But fundamentally, it's the same system. We're also able to do other things as well, such as when they first went there, the gate wasn't able to be remotely controlled. It was something that was a manual operation, so therefore they just left it open all day while they were there. So we put in some analytics that when vehicles came in, then they were alerted by their systems that a vehicle had come in and things like that. But no, it's pretty much the same system been put in from 2016, and it's still doing that work fantastically today. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they'll be glad that they're future-proofed when in 2016. Another one.
Indeed.
Can the camera footage or site access be used for incident reviews? So I assume this means if there's been a security breach, can they take that footage or the access control and provide that to maybe an external audit of the incident?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can. Depends on the system. Some integrate more than others, but there are some that integrate directly into something like Milestone, for example. So you'll have consolidated logs. So if it's not fully integrated, we can usually integrate most systems, but some are more integrated than others. Then you'll have logs from Milestone. You can, if that was your system, for example, and then you would have logs from your access control systems. Correct. Yeah.
And when looking to expand further in terms of licensing and the supply to the National Grid, does National Grid take into account the security?
Good question. So I know in some areas they have guidance on it, certainly in the cyber side and certainly in the connectivity to and from themselves. But I'd have to do a check and come back to you on if there was any electronic, as in kind of site security, physical security requirements. I'd have to come back to you on that.
And then our last one for the day is, what are some of the inputs that can be put into the budget calculator, and how can we get access to that?
All right, okay.
You mentioned it towards the end.
I did, yeah. So what we tend to do with a few customers who've got them via us is, if we've got an idea of the risks, we can understand the types of equipment. And again, we don't stray too far on that. So it'll be certain types of access, or certain types of cameras, or certain types of equipment. And there's certainly those people who are building new sites. The idea is that if they've got a new site and they've got a bit of an idea, because again, some of our customers have like the physical security teams, they'll have a bit of a clue, and we can kind of give estimates per node, so to speak. So that node might be a camera, that node might be an access control, and we've got some kind of costs that we've kind of got outlined for that, and they are kind of an all-encompassing cost is the idea. You know, it'll be whatever the items are, whether it's cameras, whether it's access, speakers, whatever it is. And it'll include a cost for all of the licensing. So if you've got if it's a VMS and it's Milestone, it will include the cost for that, including the cost for us to put it in to a certain degree, based on a certain set of parameters, like they're all bolted to walls, for example. So it's generally something, we've got a kind of an outline crib, but it generally does need a few more questions first, just so we can tailor it to the specific customer.
Okay. And that was the last question.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, everybody. Some really good questions too, which is really good. So yeah, coming soon, we've got our other next webinar in February 2025 already. So yeah, hope everybody has a good Christmas and New Year, and what other celebrations that anyone might have between now and then. We're going to be looking at cybersecurity for the next one, so some really interesting stuff, specifically for OT. So best practice for organizations from people such as NCSC, using guidance including IEC 62443, which is something I know is extremely prevalent at the moment, and really people are looking to see how they can align towards that. So we're going to be talking about that next time. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you all next time. Thank you very much, and bye.